Cyber Innovations in the Private Sector highlights case studies and the latest industry trends from private vendors. Explore innovative solutions, success stories, and exclusive insights from industry leaders. Stay ahead with the cutting-edge developments driving the industry forward.
As part of the NIS 360 special report, Cybersec TV is speaking with experts across key sectors impacted by NIS 2. Today, we focus on IoT systems and ICT service management. Joining us is Roland Atouy, founder of Red Alert Labs, to discuss the key cybersecurity risks in these areas and how organizations can build greater trust and resilience.
Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot, Nicholas, for having me here. I'm really happy to share all this experience. For those actually who do not know me, I'm Roland Atouy. I'm the managing director and founder of Red Alert Labs. We are a French cybersecurity conformity assessment body. We are specialized in mostly IoT and product evaluation and certifications. And myself, I've been involved pretty much in a lot of activities related to standardization and regulation across Europe. And I'm happy to share actually my knowledge when it comes to the NIS 2 and the NIS 360 latest report from ENISA. Regarding your first question, so why is ICT service management in the risk score? And I think what are the root causes of this maturity gap? I believe from my experience working with ICT service providers across the EU, the maturity gap for them comes from different types of factors. It's mostly historically, many MSCs grew from small IT service companies focused on operational availability rather than cybersecurity. So security was often seen as an add-on, not a core responsibility. So as a result, many providers lack of this sort of security culture, security governance frameworks, especially among, of course, those mid-sized player or SMEs. The second factor, I would say, it's about the cross-border nature of their business, which adds more complexity. These providers serve customers in different EU countries, each with different interpretation for the NIS 2, for the DORA, for national regulations and other regulations. This creates a really fragmented compliance landscape. It's really what's happening. It makes it very difficult for providers to implement a consistent EU-wide baseline, for example, security baseline that can rely on. So this. Let's say there's another factor also related more like the regulatory overlap. For example, what you mentioned with the DORA, it has really amplified the problem, I would say. MSPs serving financial clients are now under dual supervision. So from the national NIS 2 authorities and financial regulators enforcing DORA, this has created like confusion, like duplicating the audit request, significant resource strain, particularly for providers without dedicated compliance teams. So there's a lack of sector-specific security standards that we have today for ICT service management, leaving those providers with no clear roadmap and level of maturity, which is not sufficient. And so without really guidance and targeted guidance for them, tools and techniques, they will be struggling to prioritize the right investments in, of course, the people, the processes and the technologies. So that's basically what's happening today. The overlap between, I would say, just let's say NIS 2 and DORA, let's take it, is real, and it's increasing the problematic for ICT service providers. So we're seeing actually companies being, for example, asked to undergo parallel audits where they are essentially assessed on the same security control. But each regulator uses different terminology or reporting format or sort of an audit framework that to do that. But let's take an example. So under NIS 2, in MSSP may need to demonstrate its incident response capabilities, right, as part of the national cybersecurity supervision. At the same time, under DORA, if the same provider serves financial entity, they've been asked also to show their ICT-related incident handling and resilient testing, so with different reporting threshold and timeframes. So another example also is about something that talks a lot to us as well at Red Alert Labs, is the supply chain risk management. So in IS2, talks about vendor security governance, while DORA, for example, requires third-party risk assessment and sort of exit strategies, often with overlapping evidence, but different templates that you would submit and documentation, all stuff. So this application leads a very to very complicated aspects, like to difficulties, to challenges, and in some cases actually it's conflicting recommendations from different supervisory authorities. So I think what would help is to find a sort of harmonized approach, that sort of compliance matrix, I would say, that maps the, for example, NS2 and DORA requirements side by side, showing where the control overlaps and where additional sector-specific requirements exist, right? That's actually what we do usually at Red Alert Labs. It's not just actually for this regulation, but others as well. We already developed this mapping and guidelines through sort of multi-regulatory audits, that helped actually to get it, applicable and more efficiently. I strongly also believe that ENISA or even other joint task force on the EU level should make such tool, let's say, public and available for providers. So that's basically what could actually really help to reduce this at least administrative burden and help improve the reporting quality on these providers. So what we do at Red Alert Labs, we've already developed an internal mapping like this to guide the clients through multi-regulatory audits and to have that more efficient and have efficient results and impacts. I really strongly believe that ENISA or even other joint task force at the EU level should make such public alignment tool available for all providers. That would really help drastically reduce the burden and help improve reporting quality for those actually stakeholders. So that's a very important question, I believe. So how should incident testing and supervision evolve given the sort of cascading risks from MSPs? I'll give very short answer here because I mean it's a very, very long topic if we want to discuss it. I think this is where we need to stop thinking in a siloed way, right? An MSP breach, for example, can have like impact on different sectors, like across hospitals, banks, or public services. So supervisory frameworks should sort of simulate this cascading incident response across the different sectors, not just actually the IT internal testing, which obviously is not sufficient. So we, for example, at Red Alert Labs, we do have pilot projects or collaborative projects across the EU, where we use, for example, real-world attack scenarios and role-playing between sectors. I think that what would help, and that would be my answer, is really that we need more of this sort of piloting projects and exercises across the EU to help actually evolve this and mitigating the risks. I think that's a very interesting takeaway number, like 74% of providers avoid this collaboration. Honestly, that's, it's just showing that the trust isn't there yet, right? A lot of providers would worry about sharing anything that might damage their reputation or be misunderstood by authorities. So we've seen actually success with more like, for example, anonymized threat sharing formats or collaborative scoring mechanism, etc. So at Red Alert Labs, for example, we are trying to find a solution, at least, for example, with the collaborative platform that we created. It's called Cyberpass. So we encourage, for example, participants to contribute to a sort of shared intelligence layer to be able to exchange of benchmarking and visibility for the level of security, but here, of course, Cyberpass is focusing on the product level of security and compliance with the different standards and regulations. But that's actually a way somehow to put everybody on the same level to be able to share and exchange and talk and create a level of trust, right? Which is not just proven by technical means, but it should be proved by, credibility, the use of languages, the commitments that you give. So the key is to show that sharing, would improve the trust, like rather than exposing you to more, scrutiny and things that you would like to avoid. So that's a very important question as well, because what would make any wide threat sharing platform work for the MSSPs, for example? I think most importantly, you have to think about it to be usable. Like if you need a team of analysts to make sense of the feed and the result, it won't scale. Nobody would be able to use it. So it has to be really communicative. So for that, the suggestion would be really to have like a scoring approach. To think about like a top-down approach, right? That allows risk owners, then those actually will interpret scores actually to take actions, policies. So these also feeds, for example, should be interoperable. It's very important, like to map them, for example, to NIST threat taxonomies and allow that to happen, to that exchange to happen smoothly. And I think we should look into built-in incentives, like for example, giving certification credits or visibility or boost for contributors, which usually have create incentive. So that's basically our work. For example, at Red Hat Labs in IoT, in embedded security, and mostly on the supply chain, has shown us already, for example, with Cyberpath, that if you combine this reputation, context, reward, we're still not there, but I think we will get there at some point. An approach for benchmarking. I think collaboration would be able to scale. Thanks for this question, because what standards could serve as the base unified, for example, for different types of certification of compliance. I think we had the chance at Red Hat Labs and within our experts actually to be involved pretty much at between the standard organization like Sentinel, like ISO, ETSI, and the Commission, as well as NIST, to be able to find the right formula, sort of to connect the standards with the regulations, and so the technical requirements with regulatory requirements. So what we support today at Red Hat Labs is a modular risk-based certification approach. Okay, it's really it's supposed to be tailored to realities of MSSPs and MSPs, right? They could be operating in different environment, like IT, OT, on the cloud, on IoT domains, where for example we are much more involved in there. So a unified certification is a big word, but if we really want to build something, we have to build it on proven standards, right? So for example, for MSSPs, we could say, let's use ISO 27001 or NIST-CSF for core information security governance, ISMS requirements. We could couple it with different aspects as well, and other types of terminologies and standards based on risks. For example, industrial OT environments, we could look into the IEC 62443. On the IoT integration, for example, for consumer products, we could look into the EN 30365, and several others like on the cloud, for example, to ISO 2717 or 18. So that's, is we believe that actually certification should be sort of profile based. We call that, by the way, when we deliver the offer to do risk assessment, we call it the security profile, right? It aligns with a provider's risk exposure rather than the size or enabling scalable layered assurance. So the profile-based certification means that we could tailor the set of applicable standards and requirements to a specific type of service, like to take the account, for example, the intended use of a service, right, and how actually it has a impact on its on the assets, etc. For example, we take a small IT MSP serving SMEs. He might follow ISO 27001 and CIS controls, level 1 or whatever, while the other MSC offering the 24/7 SOC service to banks would definitely require more, right? Would require SOC 2 in addition, DORA alignment, etc. For the OT, it's the same thing, right? For critical infrastructure, we would take the 62443, at least on the life cycle level and the environment level, and then IS2, where, for example, IoT MSPs deploying those smart devices would look into the 30645s or EN 1831, or secure onboarding protocols using FIDO, device onboarding, etc. So this approach, for us, we ensure that certification is sort of proportionate, relevant, and scalable, and it avoids somehow low-risk providers, to be overburdened, and while actually ensuring a balance, right? Ensuring a robust assurance for high-impact services when it's required. Right. So what best practices should MSPs adopt when handling IoT and embedded systems? So I think the biggest mistake is treating IoT as just another endpoint, because it's not. These are long-lived, often unpatched assets sitting in an operational environment. So MSPs needs to adopt like device attestations, SBOM verification, and enforce like different types of, let's say, mechanisms such as secure onboarding, and that's very specific sort of to the IoT domain, and of course take into account the risk factors that could come behind it. That's what at Red Alert Labs we help, for example, our customers to certify their IoT fleets based on recognized standards. I mentioned already the EN 30645, the 62443, the EN 18031, and of course the upcoming Cyber Resilience Act harmonized standards are going to be really have a lot of impact on different verticals and markets. And we're pushing for more automated and real-time compliance posture monitoring. And we're gonna try to introduce what we call the compliance as a service thing. So it's gonna be managed services supported through our CyberPass platform. Helping actually to increase those best practices and handle exactly what is required for IoT, or let's say connected products in embedded systems. So what should be embedded by design in MSSP environments to ensure the level of trust? So I think trust isn't something that you declare. It's something that you demonstrate, like consistency and in a transparent way. So in today's interconnected service ecosystem, especially under the regulations like NIS2, DORA, and others, trust must be built into the design of the services, not in a retrofit like later on. At Red Alert Labs, we advise MSSPs to embed trust through three key pillars. So typically, the secure lifecycle management, meaning that implementing different techniques, mechanisms that actually would help improve the level of trust in the secure life cycle of, for example, product and services or processes and services. We do have something which is particular. I mentioned a little bit earlier. So we ensure continuous compliance monitoring, because trust requires staying compliant, okay? Not just once in a year, but it's all time. So integrating somehow automated checks tied to recognized certifications would help demonstrate the readiness and resilience. And finally, it's about transparency, right? So having trust scoring dashboard, something that actually will help increase the trustworthiness, will be much helpful. So we, for example, through CyberPass, we do help those customers move from static declaration of compliance to more dynamic, evidence-based trust models, where trust is continuously measured, shared, and improved. So yeah, so that's basically it. If I have to say a final word, I think in a digital environment defined by like complexity and different risks aspect, I think trust by design should not be optional. It has to be taken as a competitive advantage. So those who actually embed it early will not only actually meet regulatory expectation, but earn long-term customer confidence and gain, of course, market shares.